it took almost 10 years, but we finally got him. Osama bin Laden is at the bottom of the ocean somewhere, and good riddance, too. President Obama deserves credit for ordering the strike, which could have gone very badly, and I'm happy to congratulate him sincerely for taking that shot. But throughout the last few days, everywhere I look, I'm seeing both citizens and pundits saying words to the effect of, hey, the smart guy got him when the stupid guy didn't, and Obama was serious about getting him when George Bush wasn't. And I haven't been this angry in a long, long time. So let's bring in Steve Green and Scott Ott to get their take on things. Guys, let's just backtrack here and set up a little bit of the history. On March 1st of 2003, U.S. and ISI forces, Pakistani forces, believe it or not, captured the actual operational architect of the 9/11 attacks, a guy named Khalid Sheikh Mohammed back in Pakistan. He was waterboarded and then he was taken to Guantanamo Bay. Now, if you know anything about the Quran, you understand that you're required to resist to a point when you're broken, but once you're broken, the Quran gives you a free pass. You can do whatever you want to. So after being broken, KSM reveals everything. He lectures his captors on not paying attention. And one of the things he reveals is the name of a very, very deeply trusted courier. Back in 2007, before Barack Obama was a gleam in the eye of Saul Alinsky, they start to track that man's movements. And then we followed the courier to that compound and with a very high likelihood of probability determined that bin Laden was there, and we launched the raid. Again, congratulations, sincerely. That could have gone badly and it went very well. Now, Steve, if it hadn't been for the extraordinary rendition and the enhanced interrogation, two policies that George W. Bush insisted on in a very small number of cases, and which were opposed by Senator Obama as, quote, a stain on America's honor, then bin Laden would still be alive today, wouldn't he?
You know what, let's remember another thing, and I'm surprised you didn't bring this up. SEAL Team 6, these are the hand-picked elite of the elite. You can't even apply to join. They pick you. They got this job done. Seymour Hersh, the New York Times reporter, called them Dick Cheney's, and this is a quote, executive assassination ring way back when, you know, just a few years ago. But let's be grown-ups here. Let's talk like adults. Powerful countries sometimes have to do nasty things. We don't like to talk about them like Jack Nicholson's big speech in the movie, but today we have to talk about them. And Hersh was right. SEAL Team 6 is something of an assassination team, and that's exactly the kind of thing powerful countries must have and sometimes must use. So let's be grown-ups and admit it. If President Clinton had been a grown-up in the 90s and disappeared bin Laden when he had the chance, he was handed bin Laden on a platter and he worried that it wasn't legal, well, we wouldn't be here today if Clinton had been a grown-up. And I'm proud to say that President Obama was a grown-up and he did the right thing, even if it didn't fit into a sort of antiseptic, legal niceties view of war. I give him credit, but let's be adults about it.
Yeah, I give him credit, too, for becoming President Bush. Scott, in the president's speech on Sunday night, he said that when he assumed office, he notified the intelligence services that catching bin Laden was going to be made a top priority. Now, that's a fairly self-serving thing to say. Scott, do you think that this was not a top priority before President Obama took office?
I'm just trying to see how the guy writes the memo. You know, after hearing from the president, how does he write the memo to his colleagues? And say, ladies and gentlemen, I've just spoken with the President of the United States. Osama bin Laden's capture or assassination is now a very, very high priority. I mean, these people had been working on this for 7 years, trying to track this guy down, trying to kill him. And suddenly this new, you know, naive boy steps into the White House and says, oh, by the way, we're going to go get that guy. You know, say Hillary Clinton joked about it on the campaign trail. Why can't President Bush find the tallest man in Afghanistan? Well, you know, where's the person now who's going to stand up and say, well, of course President Obama got Osama bin Laden. Heck, he's the tallest guy in Afghanistan. How could you miss him?
Yeah, I'll come back to that quote in a minute. Steve, President Obama called the killing of Osama bin Laden the greatest achievement so far in the war on terror. Well, it certainly was the most satisfying moment, but bin Laden had been essentially impotent for 7 years now. Attacks on multiple jetliners and on downtown Los Angeles, flying planes into downtown Los Angeles, perhaps a dozen other similar plots have been foiled by U.S. intelligence forces before Obama was even nominated, and they never got any credit and they never got any glory for doing it. And this is what is making me so angry.
That's a big problem, isn't it? The idea that this war can be reduced to just, you know, one nasty bad guy, this bogeyman hiding in Afghanistan. Well, we rooted him out and we shot him dead, so it must be the most important thing ever, right? More important than liberating 50 million people in Afghanistan and Iraq. More important than stopping all those other attacks. Certainly more important than even lifting a rhetorical finger to help liberate the people of Syria or Iran. Now, we killed a very bad man on Sunday. I'm just happy as hell that Osama bin Laden was the star of a major international funeral. But we still have a lot of important work to do. I'm just afraid that this is when the president is finally going to get serious about his golf game and declare mission accomplished in the Middle East.
Yeah. Well, Scott, the only time President Obama mentioned President Bush in that speech was to invoke him as saying, we're at war with al-Qaeda, not Islam. Now, I thought, as usual, he was riding on the coattail of Bush's policies that had savaged him. Obama had just savaged President Bush as a senator for these policies. Now he's only reaping the benefits. I thought that was fairly petty and unfair of the president not to give President Bush more credit. Now, do you think I'm being unfair about that?
No, I don't. And there was a tone that's very important when you deliver a speech like this at a moment like this. And the tone, at least that I got, and many others that I've talked to, that came through was one of self-congratulations on the part of President Obama. You didn't have the sense that this was a great moment that the United States of America shares in all those who have sacrificed, all those who have died, all those who have lost limbs in the battle against these vicious terrorists, and all the people involved in the planning during the Bush administration all the way through. You got the sense that this was a great move by a smart man who finally did the right thing that so many other people in the past were not able to accomplish. Boy, would it have been classy for him to say, I want to thank President George W. Bush for laying the groundwork for what happened this evening. I made the call, ultimately sort of pulled the trigger, but without President Bush's accomplishments and his administration, I wouldn't have had this.
Yeah, if it had been me, I would have had President Bush and President Clinton beside me, because both of those presidents have had to deal with the consequences of this man, and both of those presidents, to some degree or another, were trying for their entire administrations to catch this guy. Steve, during the campaign, Hillary Clinton mentioned mockingly, Scott just said it a few moments ago, she said, how hard can it be to find the tallest man in Afghanistan? Hilarious! Only he wasn't in Afghanistan. And the reason we knew that now is because of the 7 years of legwork that were being done up to that time by President you-know-who. Now, was this entire operation finding this guy and locating him as easy as people want to make it sound today? Oh, all we had to do was just send a memo to get him. Oh, is that all it takes?
Yeah, easy. Look, SEAL Team 6 made it look easy, but as you said, it took 7 years, and let's be honest here, of ruthless intelligence gathering, followed by the very precise application of equally ruthless violence by a very small team of highly trained special forces. Really what happened on Sunday is a repudiation of Obama's Afghanistan policy, too. The surge has been an expensive mistake. But on the hunt for bin Laden, if Obama hadn't continued every single one of Bush's policies, the president would have spent last Sunday night the way he spends every Sunday night, at home on the sofa watching Celebrity Apprentice.
I believe that's true. Steve Green hosts the Weekend Blogs and the Hair of the Dog segments here at PJTV, and you can find them online at vodkapundit.com. Scott, now we hear that President Obama is going to go to ground zero and call for unity, as he did in the speech on Sunday night. What does unity mean to this man who spent his entire Senate career fighting against Guantanamo Bay, enhanced interrogations, beating al-Qaeda in Iraq, and all the rest? What does unity mean now?
Well, that's exactly my question. I mean, what unity in what? Does he have some idea that somehow the American people are divided over the righteousness and justice that was meted out by this Navy SEAL team? No, I think we already have unity. I don't think we don't need to have a moment where the president stands up and declares that we are now going to heal the nation's wounds. I mean, frankly, what he just did in giving that order for that Navy SEAL team was finally to pay back the advance that he received from the Nobel Committee. And it's about time that he did it.
Yeah, there you go. This assassination brought to you by the holder of the Nobel Peace Prize. See, it's the hypocrisy that drives me crazy, that's all. Scott Ott can be found at scottott.org, and be sure to pick up a copy of his book, Laughing at Obama, Volume 1. Now, what I'm about to say is not really directed at the president, who does deserve credit and sincere applause for launching the strike. Now, this is for the pundits and all those video game idiots who have no sense of history or even of the memory of their own so-called statements or principles. My friends, war is dirty, and it's messy, and it's unpleasant. You don't get to mock and spit on the soldiers who won this victory, that'd be the intelligence officers, the interrogators, and the special forces units, as incompetent or brutal or any of the other things that the left has been saying for 10 years now, and then suddenly hop in the lead float on the victory parade and wave flags and tell everybody how smart you are. It's dishonest. It's a lie. This justice was long overdue. But when President Bush is accused of taking his eye off the ball in respect to getting bin Laden, he and others said that the operation against al-Qaeda was more important than the man, and they're right. In the days after 9/11, when my car was being swept for bombs with mirrors before entering a movie studio, I and many others thought that these horrible attacks were going to keep coming and coming and coming, but they didn't. And they haven't, not one, in 10 years now, not because al-Qaeda stopped trying, but because men and women with moral courage, people like George W. Bush and Dick Cheney and Condoleezza Rice, took the heat for the decisions they made, and they made them anyway. President Obama says that killing bin Laden was the biggest achievement in the war on terror. That's nonsense. It's a symbolic victory, and it's important for the sense of justice. But we lost 4,000 men and women in Iraq, which was the cost of killing on the battlefield perhaps 80,000 of al-Qaeda's best fighters. When letters from Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, leader of al-Qaeda in Iraq, to Osama bin Laden were intercepted, they contained pleas for reinforcements after they were being decimated by the United States. Now, Osama bin Laden directed al-Qaeda to bet the farm on turning Iraq into Vietnam. They're the ones that took their eye off the ball, not us, and we kicked their teeth in. That was the single greatest achievement in the war on terror, the elimination of 80,000 al-Qaeda warriors in the deserts of Mosul and Fallujah, and not in the Mall of America or at Disney World. And it's about time people recognize that. And one last thing. You know, the men on that SEAL team that pulled the trigger on Osama bin Laden are probably in their late 20s today. They're enlisted men. But at the time of the 9/11 attacks, they were all probably right around 18. So I want to close with showing you some other 18-year-olds in the Navy. This is the students at the U.S. Naval Academy hearing the news for the first time that the trigger on that mass-murdering son of a gun was pulled by a member of a Navy SEAL team.